Welcome to The Next Stage, the podcast where we turn up the house lights on the future of venue management. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just getting started, this is your go-to source for the latest trends, innovations, and best practices in the venue and event management industry.
The amount of information and the amount of change and the amount of opportunity has never been greater.
We've literally broken down walls and we're looking at how can we create a more seamless experience.
There's customer demand for sustainability now.
On the forefront when it comes to venues that might not look like what you think of as a venue today.
Welcome back to The Next Stage. It's me again, Joel Edmondson, your host. And with me today is Terrence Trujillo, Director of Commercial, Qudos Bank Arena.
Thank you, Joel.
How you
Great
going,
to be
mate?
here.
It's good to see you.
Fantastic. Yeah, loving it, living the dream.
Great to be in your venue the other night, seeing Keith Urban.
Yep.
Thanks for having me.
No, definitely. I think it was I believe it was the 9th time he's played at our arena. So over 100,000 people have come through the doors over that time. And absolutely a consummate performer that loves fans.
Incredibly well polished. Chase Matthew before him, I thought had, like a pretty solid show as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. Actually, I think it was the 11th time. He went 9 before he got here. But yeah, just great performer. I'm sure we'll see him plenty more times. And just delivered a great show altogether.
I was naive to how his guitar work played a role in the show. It's actually a much bigger part of it than I'd imagine, having not seen him before. Yeah,
no, he originally was a session guitarist and then also played with Brooks and Dunn, actually as a guitarist, and that preceded him becoming the recording artist that he is today as a headliner. So it's not surprising you were impressed with his guitar work.
Yeah.
Based on that background.
And that would make sense as an Aussie making his way to Nashville and trying to make his way. You end up playing for other people first.
Believe it or not, he was born in New Zealand.
Oh, right. Okay. I'm still claiming him.
But definitely, yeah, he was he's well and truly an Aussie. But yeah, nice path there and really led the way in terms of the country genre as well and how it's emerged. So, we've seen a number of genres emerge recently after COVID. I think country's definitely one of them with artists like Luke Combs, Morgan Wallen, that type of thing. Also seen comedy grow quite a lot over that period, and then multicultural as well, which is one of the things I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, great. That would be good to get into that. And I think the amazing thing about country music as well is that audience crosses over into sport quite heavily as well. There's obviously a big footy and country music crossover there. So I think there's a lot of opportunities for sport and music to learn a lot through the lens of the country music fan.
Yeah, and I think one thing we've noticed as well, the genres are crossing over a lot. So country, famously you see what Beyonce has done, which really, raised people's eyebrows with Cowboy Carter. But we are seeing, collaboration across the line from different artists with country musicians and vice versa. So it really has become, quite a mainstream and evolved genre in its own right. And we see that with the crowds that come through as well. So traditionally you'd have, more male dominated. We get a lot of people coming in from the country, as the name would suggest, but it's become, very much balanced between the balance between the genders and also on the ages. So it's really a great genre for us.
Yeah, and it's got there's a big sort of circle in the middle of it that's very family oriented as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
From an intergenerational perspective is pretty good for a venue.
Yeah. When we see that with the artists as well, often the fans are a reflection of the artists and the artists are very giving with their time. So you mentioned around Keith. Keith actually had a position with the security where he said, look, we don't want to have the security too in your face. I encourage people to come in and interact. And that's driven down, from the artist into the fans, and then the fans also react that way. So they're very, welcoming and come to the arena with a great attitude.
And again, I think that's the Southern hospitality culture coming through the genre of music, right? Like when I was in New Orleans recently, as much as that's a jazz town, there's a lot of country music comes through New Orleans as well, and you can the music and the social culture are definitely melded.
Yep.
In that way.
Yep.
And then you've also got Tyler, the creator, over the next few nights. That's a different story.
Yeah. Now Tyler's been great, and look forward to welcoming you there tonight. He's a very creative artist, and has evolved his sound. I think he toured a couple of years ago at our arena as well, and saw night one last night, and he's doing very well. He's selling around 16,500 seats, so sold out all 3 nights. And the floor is around 5,500 people on the floor, and young crowd, very enthusiastic, but they're all enjoying themselves and really getting into the live entertainment experience.
And an immense amount of merch sold by the look of it.
Yeah, it was. Without disclosing too much detail, it's definitely one of our highest selling nights. So. We see that with the younger fans particularly. Tyler has given it a really good crack with his range as well. And, absolutely. Last night was the first night of the tour in Sydney, and, the numbers were astronomical, to be honest.
The hotel where we're recording this at the moment is in Sydney Olympic Park, just near the venue. And this morning when I got up for breakfast, the whole room was wearing Tyler merch, but everyone seemed to be wearing something different. And some of it, as you've just said, was very high end. Like there was this baseball jacket that was embroidered and beautiful.
I think it's around $350.
Yeah.
So stock's still available if anyone's going. That definitely was the case. And just a fantastic artist. We were talking about Kendrick Lamar, who played in our arena, and obviously he's touring later. Going outdoors this time round, but definitely see some parallels there where, the artist will come in a very theatrical manner as well. So, it is the whole 360 experience. You talk about the merchandise, the tangibility of something you can take away and remember the experience from. But, he's pushing the boundaries, and his energy is just incredible, which you'll see tonight. Obviously.
Yeah, great. Yeah. Fantastic. And I did notice that in the build of the set, there's quite a kind of unique approach to that.
Yeah, there's what we call around 270-degree sightline, so it's not quite a round stage, but he's been able to pack the arena quite full, which is why we get to that 16,500 mark at the moment, which is a fair bit for what we call an end stage configuration. So his stage is almost like a cross shape, big runway. He comes out. The screens are generally above the actual runway as well, so it's not your traditional big screen at the back setup, which has allowed more patrons to get in and more people to get close to the artist.
It not that it's identical because of the screen placement's different, but I thought Katy Perry's tour had an amazing set design as well this year.
Yeah. That was very good, other than the stage invader that we had. But
did you?
We won't talk about that.
Okay.
No, she was really good. She had what was called an infinity stage, actually. So there was special VIP sections within the pit, and she actually was one of those artists that I think surprised a lot of people because she's been around for a long time. And, she really evolved her sound. She used a lot of production, and it was just an incredible fan experience then as well.
Yeah, it definitely reminded me of being in a high-end Disney ride or something. The level of production that was involved was
definitely
immersive.
Yeah.
So, mate, you're obviously both passionate and very knowledgeable about a range of stuff that comes through the venue, and, you've been a fan yourself. What were the things as a kid that got you interested in this?
Yeah, it's just thank you for, I guess, that comment around being knowledgeable about music. I think it's always been part of what I've what's driven me, like music and entertainment. And we're in Sydney Olympic Park now. I remember, I'm old enough to, I'll admit it, to remember when the Olympics were here, when all the venues were built. I remember pre-Olympics when there was other things going on as well. So I think back to the days when the Big Day Out was here, and there was a rite of passage growing up, and I firmly remember what it was like being at Sydney Olympic Park during the Olympics and watching all my different sports and anything else that was going on. I remember massive concerts that I went to out here, like Pearl Jam when they toured in 2006, and everything about me is fan first. I think about what it was like to be a fan, and I've been really privileged in this industry to have the opportunity to try to impact the fan experience when you go in. So We talk about every time you go and watch an artist play, you're pretty much going to your grand final. So the kids that are across the road going to Tyler tonight, saved their hard-earned. They're going over to see him. We saw out of COVID, a lot of them were seeing artists for the first time as well. They'd been sitting back, weren't able to interact. So when they come out, they have an incredible experience. The artist's always putting on 100%. So anything that we do from the arena that can, put some angel dust on that in relation to things that we have access to or interviews that we can do, experiences that we can provide is something that really drives me. And, I just, again, think about what it was like to be a fan and, know now what I know and what extra things that we can do to make that experience even better.
I feel like that's extra important these days because some of the ancillary bits that gave you a richness of the sense of content, particularly of recorded music, have gone now. So, buying and yes, people buy vinyl, but it's getting more and more expensive all the time. Record sleeves and CD sleeves and what that was like when we were kids kind of discovering artists, that's necessarily now been replaced by, social content and, a range of other ways of engaging that, something feels like it's missing unless you have context around an experience.
Yeah, and look, it's been well documented that the financial modelling around touring and, an artist income in general has changed a lot. With digitalisation of music, as you said, the moving on from mainstream of things like record CDs. So it makes a live experience that much more important. And look, economics are economics from a consumer's point of view. And, we're not naive that it is becoming more expensive in cost of living, et cetera. But what we're finding as well is that a lot of fans, like take the kids across the road, they're saving their money because they want these experiences and they're long lasting. But we're not naive to take that for granted. But we definitely think, it's changed. And, being able to give, a tangible representative experience of, their music in the absence of, the old CD covers and the slips that us old people used to read is becoming more and more important. And we talked about merchandise as well. And merchandise is a great, keepsake. Every time you pull that Tyler, the Creator shirt on, straight away you're transported back into, that night and those memories. And, I think, we're seeing things like merchandise get bigger and bigger, particularly for these younger acts that are coming through. And I think that's, again, what you were saying. It's that tangible memory of the experience and, what they can draw back on.
So just stepping back again into sort of your past, tell us about your journey. Like, how did you end up in your job now?
Yeah. Look, first thing I'd say to anyone who's trying to get into the industry is always volunteer your time. I think first and foremost, our industry is really difficult to get into. And if you think you're just going to sit back and it's going to fall on your lap, you're kidding yourself. That's probably piece of advice number one. So be giving with your time. So I was probably like a lot of people in our industry as well. Like I aspired to be on the stage, but the stage that I wanted to aspire on was probably more on the sports side of things. So the start of my journey was actually working for sporting teams, and the majority of my career has actually been working for sporting teams. So I've worked for a couple of basketball teams, the Kings and Illawarra Hawks in NBL, and then I've worked for the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs and St George Illawarra Dragons, and I've worked for a few tournaments, et cetera, as well. But the majority of my career, particularly in the early days, was working on the sports side of things.
What sport did you want to be on the
It was actually baseball, to be honest.
Okay,
yeah,
wow.
I played a lot of baseball. So back to the comments around Sydney Olympics. So a lot of guys I played with were played for the Australian team during the Olympics in Sydney. So I was around that era. So, I did all right, got up the ranks, but you learn the difference between good and great pretty quickly.
Yeah,
and there's certain things, I believe you can't really learn. It's like God-given gifts and they're those, top couple of percent. But, I learnt a lot of lessons from working in sport. I, definitely encourage my kids and, I help out in a lot of ways in that regard. But I think I was around sport in my early days and I realised, what impact that it could have. And whilst it wasn't actually getting out there and competing under the lights or performing under the lights, it was pretty damn close. And you still got that buzz and it still got you up in the morning and it still got you motivated and you learnt a heck of a lot of really good people and you really had a great time in terms of, what we define as work.
Yeah, that's right.
It's not to say it's not difficult at times, but,
Yeah,
keeps you motivated.
For outside people, the line looks a lot more blurred in terms of work and play, in terms of what we do.
Yeah, 100%. I won't walk out of the arena tonight till midnight. So,
and you're not just working hard; you're also kicking goals. So Qudos recently won an award for its work engaging with multicultural audiences. Do you want to tell everyone more about that?
Definitely. Touched on a little bit about the different genres that have emerged, particularly since COVID, and saying comedy, country, and multicultural I often talk about. So multicultural sits at around 12 to 15% of our concerts that are coming through at the moment. And I was having a look at our calendar in preparation for this chat today, and they're not all announced, but we've got 5 big multicultural acts that are coming through between now and the end of June, which is our financial year. And what we were finding is that these multicultural acts were becoming more prevalent. They were generating really high box office taking, so they were regularly getting in the top 10 annually for us. So I think 4 out of the top 10 of our acts in the last year were from multicultural audiences. And then we looked at how we were delivering our services and the revenue that we're making out of those shows as well, and some of the research that we've done after the shows. And what we were finding is we had this very high per cap spend in terms of box office, but we were under delivering in a lot of the areas in terms of like food and beverage, in terms of customer service, net promoter ratings, et cetera, et cetera. So what we did then is we partnered with an agency called Cultural Pulse that I've worked with a little bit before, and we used some data technology called Ask Genie. We went in and we looked at, looking at the different lists and different, data that we have on the customers, and we identified, where they're from a country point of view. And then we developed a whole campaign around that. So everything from, the way that we communicate through pre-event to our signage, at the event, to our staff. We put bilingual staff around. Our content strategy changed, so we would have bilingual staff in there. We engaged with the communities, hosted them, and we also looked at food and beverage options as well, which I'm not going to sit back and say we cracked it all on in every occasion with the F&B, because there was challenges for us being a venue that puts on 120 events a year to have bespoke offerings. But we definitely had some really good cases out of that where we sold out certain items for some of our Indian events, which we're really proud of. And as a result of that, we had significant changes in our net promoter scores through doing that. And we really had some great feedback from our promoters as well. So they were saying, look, great, cultural inclusivity is fantastic. In our region in Sydney, there's a big opportunity there. So other than the fact that we're getting a range of multicultural acts coming through now, through just general changes in genres, geographically where we're at in Sydney is very close to multicultural markets. So I think looking at, we had 75% of residents in the 10 kilometre radius of the arena had at least one parent born overseas, as an example. And we're seeing that trend changing and developing over time. So the big genres the big diasporas that we're seeing is the Asian market, which is predominantly Chinese and Korean, and then also we've seen quite a lot of acts come through from the Indian market recently as well. So both of those markets were well positioned. Those customers generally haven't been to Qudos Bank Arena or been to a lot of the arenas before. So we would get phone calls saying, "Oh, what am I going to do if it's going to be raining?" We're like, "Well, we're an indoor stadium, or indoor arena," and people just didn't know that. So it was a real education piece and just getting around them and putting the right staff, communicating to them in the right way. So to your question around the award, we recently really proud of it. We went in the Campaign of the Year award and the Tech Diversity Award. So we actually won a merit award in that, which was awarded in Melbourne about a week ago. So we're really proud about that. So we're going to put a few releases out and just continue to grow that initiative.
Congratulations again.
Yeah, thank you.
I had this same conversation with Craig McMaster yesterday, who runs Riverside Theatre not far from here, and I was reflecting on a lot of conversations I used to have with certain promoters that would be nameless on this show at the moment, maybe a decade ago, about the opportunity that exists in our community for, not just sort of morally and ethically, but commercially, where these other communities are concerned. And it has taken a really long time for this business in Australia to wake up to the opportunity that's represented by multicultural audiences. And to me, like, you could take the easy route and go, oh, maybe we're just a little bit racist in this country and small-minded, and maybe the industry has been very white in that respect. But I think the other thing, and it's the subtext of the answer that you just gave me then, is that we're using data more and more, and that's starting to spill into decision points where we used to use our gut or our kind of habitual mind to make those decisions. And it feels like, this really is one where, venues are starting to go, okay, well, what is the data on the community and the audiences out there? Who is being underserved? What are the niches? What are we learning about, the size of stadiums that, these K-pop acts that will do like 10 runs in a row of 80,000 people stadiums in Korea, and we have that audience here as well. How do you think that's going to continue to develop from here?
Yeah, I just jump back on your comment about data as well. So one of the ones that was really interesting for us is when we ran the data for K-pop. So K-pop, you would think, uneducatedly, if that's a word, you would think that they're predominantly Korean, particularly the Asian market, and they're not. We ran the data, and the predominant market was actually Chinese and Mandarin-speaking Chinese, so we can drill down to that level. There was obviously representation from Koreans, but we also saw Filipinos, we saw Thais, and we saw a huge amount of people from Anglo-Saxon background. So without those insights, we wouldn't know in terms of, the makeup even of the multicultural side of the market. So that just then drives everything. In terms of where it's heading, I mean, like I was saying around the other genres that are growing, the same country and comedy and multicultural, we can't see this changing. Like, they're continuing to come down the pipes. We're seeing K-pop particularly becoming more and more mainstream. So, Netflix, my kids run around watching, K-pop Demon Hunters as an
my
example.
daughter as well loves it. Yeah.
They're all over it. And, obviously we're seeing other artists jump on board as well, and collaborations are really quite common as well amongst normal mainstream artists and K-pop artists. And, it's very much globalization as well, which is really interesting. So we just see it continuing to grow, and we just see it as being a huge untapped market that, wasn't being served very well in the past. And, we're very excited about growing it.
Mm. And it'll be interesting to see then reciprocally how our industry, and not just the venue industry, but the entertainment industry in Australia, can work those channels to also do more export of Australian artists into those communities as well. Because I know in other discussions, that's it's an important but more difficult nut to crack sometimes as well.
No, definitely. And look, the two overlap as well. So there's Australian artists of Korean background that are in Korean bands as well.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's really interesting. But no, good point. I agree with that. Like, promoting our, homegrown artists is obviously very important as well.
Now, just to go back to blowing wind up your skirt, Bree Chudesky and your team was recently named by Polestar in their Next Gen Awards. What was that for? Yeah,
so firstly, I'd just like to say, Bree, if you're listening, superstar, well done. Really proud of what you have done. As I was saying, the point around how I like to operate and, I operate with my team is no story is too trivial. Like, think back what it was like when you were a fan. So a lot of what we do is to try to uncover that fan story on an event-by-event basis. So as an example, as we were recording this, we said Tyler Creator is going on. The angle that, we came up with was to actually go out and speak to the kids that are waiting in the line to get their GA floor position. So as I touched on, there's roughly 6,000 kids that will be down on the GA floor, and all of us remember what that was like. So we've had kids lining up, for days out the front. And the angle that we've taken for this show is to go out and actually interview them and talk to them whilst they're waiting. Hey, how's it been? Why are you lining up? Is this the first time that you've seen here? What's your favourite song? Who are you here with? Et cetera, et cetera. So what Brie effectively has done is have a segmented strategy based on who the artist is coming through, try to figure out what would resonate, what's the main driver of these fans by event level, and then go in with our film crew and tell the story. We cut that up pretty much more or less real time, so we'll try to get that out on the night of the event, and we will tell many and varied stories as a result. So what Brie's done is she also worked with myself and our team of coming up with the creative concepts on that. Obviously the delivery, but what was really cool with Brie and something I was really proud of what she did is she actually got in front of the camera as well. So she became our presenter, which I don't think she'd be ashamed of me saying this. It was something that absolutely took her out of her comfort zone.
Yeah, I was going to say
it's not an
courage.
easy thing to do.
Yeah.
Like anyone who's done anything on camera, I'm sure you're the same. I've done it. Is you always look at yourself and you cringe. Like not only does your voice sound weird, but you look weird. Your face looks weird. But she's gone and done that, and she's really done the creative side, the planning side of things, but then also the execution, and then just the concept of what we've done of trying to really get down to grass levels and tell that story is quite unique as well. And I think there was just a fantastic recognition of what she has achieved.
Yeah, and I think without getting into generational stereotypes too much, the younger people in our industry deserve much more credit for their creativity, particularly on this specific front. Are there any stories fan stories that have come through that content that are especially memorable? To you?
I think the couple of stories that we think were really good was we did a bit of a brand collaboration with Billie Eilish's perfume. So she released, both times she toured, she also released a fragrance. So we had a huge activation there. It was an immersive experience. And the content that we came up with on this occasion was for the fans to indicate what were the notes in the perfume. So I'm not going to sit back and say I remember what the notes were, but we had it down, and the process was we gave them the perfume, they sprayed it on their wrists, they smelt the perfume, and then they had to go and tell us, what was on there. And as a result, whoever did choose the right or get the right answer, they received a merchandise pack, and they also received a VIP upgrade to some really fantastic seats. So we went around, and obviously that became a really engaging piece of content. The kids, the fans were really into it, and that was probably our most streamed activation that we did do. Obviously, Billie's fans are huge. Billie's fans, love social, very much of that generation. So we were working with a good base there, but that one really resonated. Probably one that was one of the funniest ones is, we often ask the question, hey, what are you doing here tonight? And, is this the first time that you've been to an act, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it was for Bring Me the Horizon. And we went and asked one of the fans, and they actually said, oh, yeah, I was supposed to be getting a kidney transplant, but I put that on hold so I could come to the gig tonight. And we're like, I'm not really sure that's what we want to be encouraging, but that's a lot of dedication. So well done to you.
Yeah, at the Keith Urban show the other night, after the first three songs when he engaged with the audience, someone had a sign up saying, I cancelled my knee reconstruction to be at this event tonight, and his response was very similar to what you just said.
No, exactly. So, but again, it's tapping into that passion, which we've all been there. We all will continue to be there, and giving fans the opportunity to be with their tribes on the night, to draw back on their memories and really tell us some unique stories.
What do you think is the future of the economics of the super fan and the role of the super fan? Because that it's certainly more broadly in the music business, that is a real focus, and it seems to be an analog in a way to the focus in venues around the premium offering in a way that, you know, these are kind of special people we want to focus on.
Yeah, and I would say for people who are listening to this, and maybe for people who, you know, have been in the industry or thinking about going to the industry, it's not until you're in the industry that you really realise what a super fan is. So before you work in the industry, I'm the biggest fan. You really are not. When you work in the industry and you see what a super fan is, yeah, sometimes it's bordering on pretty interesting. Let's just put it that way.
Right.
So the economics on it's a really interesting one. So there's people. Take when we had Blink-182 come through, they played 4 nights with us, and I think they did a tour around Australia where they probably did 12 plus shows across the country. It was actually one of those tours that really just continued to sell well. I think we started thinking, are they going to play 2? We're going to roll to 3, roll to 4, and a bunch of Gen Xers and slightly youngers running around. But it wasn't uncommon that we'll see fans following artists across the country, if not across the globe. A small percentage, but to answer your question, what is the future of the super fan and the economics? It's not cheap. So, I think artists are getting better, particularly the younger, more commercially attuned artists at providing upsells. So tonight, as an example, we'll have probably 4 or 5 different VIP packages. That can mean anything. It could be, for some artists, it's a meet and greet afterwards. For Tyler tonight, there'll be early entry where you'll get special merchandise that'll come in. You'll have a special opportunity to go and purchase your merchandise before the crowds come in. So artists are definitely seeing the value of that, of tapping into the superfan. It goes back to the data points that you speak about. Music's become very targeted as well through the different streaming platforms. Which areas are popular for artists and which cities which can minimise the risk. But I think, the superfan, to answer your question, I think it's going to be, more and more difficult for the superfan to afford everything, but there's definitely going to be a lot more opportunities moving forward, because I think the artists, touring's become so much more important. They want to give the fans the opportunity to experience as much as they can. Yeah,
and I think the light and dark side of economic inequality growing in society is that there will be a part of society that can spend more and more on premium superfan type experiences. And then, as you alluded to at the start of the conversation, the average person is finding it tougher and tougher. And, that's a real quandary, I think, not only for artists but for venues as well, is, with there being basic sunk costs of operations, how do you keep your product accessible so that the fan stays engaged?
Yeah, and I think, Taylor was a good example. Everyone talks about Taylor touring recently, and, she obviously could have put her prices up a lot more. Demand was there, but it's, playing the long game, and, I think that's what artists have to think about as well. It's not just, a straight supply and demand discussion. It's about, getting that breadth of fans in, giving most of people, as many people as possible, a great experience, and then probably looking at the long game as well in terms of trying to get as many people in as you can.
And for Taylor, because she has restructured the ownership of the rights of her music, there's not as much pressure as almost any other artist around live bringing in such a massive proportion of income, because the advent of streaming has meant that has been the case for so many.
Yeah.
Let's just go back to talking about the venue and your job and what you're doing. We've talked about a lot of different concepts and approaches, ideas. How do you measure success where fan engagement's concerned?
Yeah, so with social media and fan engagement, it's fantastic in terms of being able to measure it. I think that's one of the great things that we're finding. Back in the old days, it was, finger to the wind a little bit. Probably that, laid the seeds of our approach of not seeing opportunities like multicultural as much as, we might have in the past, because it was like, write a passage, release your CD, hit the road for a while, and open the gates and everything will happen. So everything from ticketing is very much about analytics, our venue is owned by TEG. We're a Ticketek venue, so the value of analytics for Ticketek is incredibly high. So we'll constantly monitor how things are going. They'll make adjustments to pricing. As needed, they'll look at rolling additional shows, and that's all data driven. I think from an engagement point of view, and going back to what Bree was recognised for in Next Gen, we've grown on a reach perspective 47% in the last year, and then I think it's 175% since June 23. So we look back at that, and that was part of the submission that we put forward to Polestar for her award, and that was the proof in the pudding about what has actually happened. And you look back to that Billie Eilish example. So we go, hey, great idea. We did something for Gracie Abrams as well, where we did like what Taylor did with the bracelets, and we gave them out, and just random acts of kindness and that type of thing. So we can measure directly, like every other person can who runs social channels these days, about how successful that is and what their fan engagement and reach was in that regard. We monitor sentiment. We every event we survey like a lot of venues, so we keep a pretty close eye on that. That was a lot of the genesis behind the multicultural project. So we saw the NPS is heading the wrong way in that regard. So, that's really a lot of measurements go in, and, it's the success that we, hopefully are achieving is a result of, keeping an eye on those numbers and adjusting our strategy accordingly.
And you just told me the other day you've just developed a framework for segmenting audience in your engagement approach. Yep. Can you tell me a little bit more about what that looks like?
As a venue, we're obviously the recipients of a lot of data from, opt-in information from ticket purchases. So, we work with, Audience Republic is our email platform, and we'll segment. So, if we're looking at, pushing along a show that may not be going as well as we would like, so we have, quite a big database, and we can go in and we can pull out recipients from, similar genres. We'll do different campaigns in that regard. We work closely with TG Ovation, which is their analytics part of their business as well, which will, help us identify potential, data buckets that we can promote to. And because, fans don't live in isolation, there's obviously obvious commonalities between genres, but there's also, connections between sport, between certain genres like hip hop and basketball is one. So, we look at working with the Kings where certain shows might be struggling that we think there's a crossover with. But there's a lot of work around the data and the frameworks that help us, drive those decisions.
What's that data telling you about how the fan experience is evolving and how it may evolve into the future?
The data is showing that it's very broad. So it can tell us, we have a huge amount of the population that are purchasing live entertainment, a lot of people purchasing for the first time. I think we've got challenges to try and figure out, who all the people are in the data in the building, because you've got your purchaser and then your secondary people on there. It's showing that, the move obviously towards digital is irrefutable. So, we're completely digital at the moment, digital tickets, digital advertising on tickets is an opportunity. So I think, the velocity is continuing a lot. I think we'll know more and more about our customers, and, I think it's helping drive our business model.
In closing, what's the number one thing you've learned about doing this work that you think is most important for people to take away?
Yeah, one of the people that I love and I think about a lot, who's sadly passed, is Robin Williams. So I think Robin Williams, he'd always walk around and have a big think on his hat or his T-shirt, and, he'd always be irreverent and challenging the status quo. I think he also was able to tap into his inner child. So I think it's really important that, in this industry, we remain curious. We keep thinking. We remember that inner child, and we always seek to connect with fans in that regard, because we're very fortunate to work in this industry. And often if you look around as a venue, if you're looking for the answer, it's right in front of you. So we have access to so many different experiences, so many different elements of the fan experience on an event by event basis. And it's about being curious, looking around. Don't be afraid to ask the question. Don't be afraid to make some mistakes. And, you know, you'll continue to see great results in that regard and make a real difference to people who attend. And
by the sound of it, you know, fun needs to remain sort of central to that as well.
We work really hard, so you may as well enjoy it. And, you know, at the end of the day, people love, you know, attending our events. They love our product. They love the time that they're spending with us. So why not make it better?
You're clearly very passionate about this, and I'm really grateful that you've brought that passion to the conversation today. So thanks so much for being with us today.
Absolute pleasure, and well done, Joel. Love what you're doing, mate.
Thanks, Terrence. Cheers, mate.
Cheers, bye.
We'll see you all next time on the next stage. Bye for now.